Hey everybody, it's Kia Stevens of the Father Swap blog, and I have with me a new friend, Dr. Michelle Watson. Hey Michelle, how are you?
Hey, good.
I
I'm
love those
excited to be
frames,
here.
Michelle. I really love those frames.
Yeah, a little sassy right there.
Little sass is good for the
hmm
late night Facebook interview. I'm so glad you guys are joining us. And just in case you have never ever seen one of my broadcasts, I do want to let you know that I'm the creator of the Father Swap blog, and the aim of the blog is to help women exchange their father wounds for the love of God the Father. And so this broadcast and any blog posts that you read are to help women who have experienced father wounds by way of divorce, abandonment, abuse, incarceration, drug addiction, alcoholism, physically present but an emotionally absent dad, or even premature death. We exist to serve you and to provide you with resources. And that's why I have my new friend,
Yay!
Dr. Michelle Watson. And she is here to talk to us about when men become courageous fathers. I am excited to dive into this conversation. She has just a vast experience of working with fathers and daughters. So I just can't wait. Are you doing good, Michelle?
I'm so excited. I've been waiting for this all week. So,
You've been waiting longer
yeah.
than that, like months. I think I
Well,
scheduled
true that. True that. Yeah.
maybe 2 months. So before we dive in, I want you guys to know about Dr. Watson because she is just so well versed and so knowledgeable on the subject matter. So let me give you a little bit about her. She has a clinical counseling practice in Portland, Oregon, and has served in that role for the past 20 years. That is amazing.
Which just means I'm old. Can we just put that out there?
No, it doesn't. And fine and fabulous. You're fine.
Okay. Okay. I'll take it.
Don't say that. So she has had the privilege of being up close and personal to girls in their teens and 20s over the past 35 years in roles such as camp counselor, mentor, teacher, speaker, and mental health therapist. With that background, coupled with the fact that she's the oldest of four girls, so you had a lively childhood.
Yes.
She has a firm grasp on men and women. And she is passionate about equipping dads to become the heroes. I love that. That they want to be
Yeah.
for their daughters and what the heroes that their daughters need them to be.
Exactly.
Also, she hosts a radio program called The Dad Whisper in Portland, and that's also available on iTunes. And she has authored her first book entitled Dad, Here's What I Really Need from You, a guide for connecting with your daughter's heart. So good. So good.
Okay. Little prop. Little prop right
Yes,
here.
a plug. A
Little
plug.
plug.
I'll get that for the men in your lives. And she is the creator of the Abba Project, which we're going to dive into a little bit later on today. This is a program designed for dads who are ready to commit to improving the relationship with their daughter. So needed. And she started this program because she believes in the transforming power of a dad's love and attention to his daughter's life.
Yeah.
Yes. Dr. Watson is committed to helping equip dads to relate to their daughters in greater ways. That is,
Woo! Amen.
yay. That's such an extensive bio. I'm so excited to kind of talk to you. You have such a wide range of experience. So, can you just start off telling us a little bit about your professional background and anything you want to share from your personal history that led you down this path of working with fathers?
Sure. Well, like you said, I'm the oldest of four girls, and I was one of those girls that never thought I was smart enough, to get a degree. And yet, I think just such a reminder, you guys, if I can do this, you can do it. You just put one foot in front of the other. Everything's too hard. I mean, let's talk about it. Women birth babies. You talk about us doing hard things. Come on now. You just do it. And so throughout my life, again, I've just been one of those internally wired girls. Ask my parents, ask my dad. That's like, Michelle, you always are committed to perfectionism. And I'm like, let's just call it excellence. So all that to say, you asked about my professional background. So I went to Bible school right out of high school. My parents wanted me to get a year of Bible school, and I went 3 years because I didn't know what I wanted to do when I grew up. And then in my 20s, I started dating a guy that really wasn't good. We were in a couple Christian bands together, and he was the bad boy, you know, that had
Wait, so you
come
sing?
around.
Do you sing?
Yeah. Yeah, I sing. I led worship at my church for 7 years, big church. I play keyboard and that kind of thing. Yep. So music is a big love of mine. And so really youth ministry and music ministry have kind of been my adult life passion, you know? And so then, you know, coming out of Bible school and dating this guy that wasn't so good, it was at the end of my 20s that finally I began to, I will say, fall apart. And it drove me into a counselor's office. And I was in counseling for 8 years. And the way that I say it is the God that I knew in Bible school, the Jesus I knew, started to infiltrate down into my heart space, into my wounds, into my crap. And it literally felt like blinders came off, like scales came off my eyes. Literally, I was like, things look different now. And
I think
so
that's a new quote. That's a new tweet. Like the God of my youth began to infiltrate my crap.
Yeah, there you go.
That's the truth. If anything is not that's the truth. That is the truth.
Yeah. In fact, going into Bible college or going through Bible college, and I got to go back there last October, a year ago, and speak to them. And I'm like, you guys, no one taught me how to integrate theology and biblical doctrine once my stuff started coming up. You know, it'd been pushed down. I couldn't do it anymore. You know, there's the upside of dating a not great guy is all the stuff started coming up to be healed. And so anyway, born out of 8 years of counseling, I said, I have got to do this with my life. And then it was like, where do I go to graduate school? And I decided I wanted to go to a secular school here in Portland called Lewis and Clark College, which, by the way, got put on the map by Monica Lewinsky. I'm just saying, she went there and back in the day. And so then I got a master's in counseling psychology, started, you know, my clinical practice then. And then a few years in, I went, I got to have more letters after my name to advocate for clients. And so then I got my PhD in health psychology. So that's kind of the academic part. Can I share a little bit about then my own testimony, my story? Because really, like you said, what's the background then to this and this calling or this passion? And, you know,
I think we lost you there a little bit. If you are watching, just want to say we are with Dr. Michelle Watson, and she is sharing her heart for fathers and daughters. See if we can pick her back up there.
Okay, stop camera, and then I'm coming back on again.
Okay. All right. Well, she's coming back on again. So if you are just joining us, Michelle is getting ready to talk to us about her heart for training dads to be great fathers, and she should be joining us shortly. She's going to talk to us a little bit about, she has the Abba Project. I think this is her joining us now, where she trains and equips dads to be better fathers. So I just kind of stretched out some. Don't you just love being live? You just,
I know. But we're committed to making this work. So we'll just keep redialing if we have to. But so anyway, I was just sharing a little bit of the backstory of my life that led me to the work that I do with clients, with fathers, with daughters. And that's that born out of my own history is when I started counseling, layers of memory. A lot of times the hardest stuff is deeper inside, like layers of an onion. And so I already knew that I had sexual abuse from my grandfather, my mom's dad. But as the layers of memory begin to come up, is a pretty horrific abuse memories began to arise that I thought there's no way this could be my story. And it pretty some dark stuff that involves the spiritual realm and religious leaders that were abusive. And I'm thinking there's no way this can really be my story. And yet it was in those memories, time after time, I had a counselor that would say, where is Jesus in this memory? This is the stuff that always gets me a little bit choked up. And I thought, he doesn't show up to places like this. And yet it was through that, as saying Jesus was here. And I'll never forget the time in my memory that it was like I could see him standing and stroking my hair and being with me with tears coming down his face. And I knew he'd be there to clean me up afterwards, but not go through the valley of the shadow of death. And it literally trauma bonded me to Jesus. That's the strongest bond you can ever have with someone. And that's how the Bible college Jesus that, that I'd known in my head made his way down into my spirit and into my heart and into all of my woundedness. And that's where the healing began to really take shape for me. So that's the background of what brings me to the work that I do, is that I am a broken, hot mess. That's my history. I would have disqualified myself for this work in a heartbeat. And yet I think so often God uses the broken ones, those of us that know this is not by my might or my power, it's by God's Spirit that anything of value is happening. And so that's my testimony in a nutshell.
That's amazing. And if you would oblige me, I'd love to kind of park there for a little bit, because I think so many people who have experienced trauma, maybe there's abuse by a relative or by a leader in the church, or maybe they have just experienced abandonment from their father. It's hard to understand how a loving God would allow something like that. And I think it becomes a hang up for so many people of like, I know I need God in my life. I know I need something more, but how can I approach this God who would allow something like this to happen to me if he's supposed to be so loving? How did you reconcile that, Dr. Watson?
Well, a couple key scriptures for me. I mean, that's what I go back to is, what does this word, right? There's 750,000 words in the Bible, and Jesus is called the Word. So I'm going to go back to the Word and go, you got to give me some words here. Like I want my theology to inform my emotions so that I have that leading me. And so one scripture, I'll just tell you, this one comes to mind. It's Isaiah 63:9. And it's in all their distress, God says, I too was distressed. Mm-hmm. And I remember a few years ago talking to a friend who had just miscarried. And she said, now I can't fit into any of my clothes and I have nothing to show for it.
Wow.
And I said to her, she's standing there weeping. And she said, and it's like God is standing up in heaven going, ha ha.
Wow.
You thought I was there, but now you haven't. And I said, that isn't him. That isn't the kind of God he is. And I said, you're never going to believe this. This morning, I found Isaiah 63:9. I found it, in all their distress, he too was distressed. He did not abandon us in that time. But we believe that because do you think it's any coincidence, Kia, that Jesus in red letter in the New Testament called Satan the father of what?
Lies.
Lie. He has a PhD in liology. That is what I would have thought like he would have been called like the father of darkness, the father of evil, the father of sin.
Yeah.
But isn't it interesting? He's called the father of lies. And isn't it also interesting to call a father? Not the instigator of evil, the CEO of death, but a father. He's a counterfeit father who specializes in planting lies. And even going back to Genesis 3, beginning of 3 with the fall, is where Satan comes up to Eve, right, mother of the living, and says, did God really say? 4 words. Did God really say? She comes back with 4 words. But God did say. Mm-hmm. He's doing the same thing now. Did God really say he loved you? Because if he loved you, he wouldn't let you go through that. I'm like, that's got to be a lie. Just for starters. Mm-hmm. And so let me give you one other scripture that has helped me. So that one about in all my distress, he too was distressed. And a friend of mine said, whenever you don't understand a scripture verse or something about God, go with what you do know and then ask God to reveal insight into what you don't know, rather than I kind of throw the whole baby out with the bathwater till I get it all. Mm-hmm. And so I get that we have to wrestle through these issues because they're significant, as my nose is running from crying. Okay, here's my other verse that's really profound. This was maybe 8 years ago, long after I was, done with my hardest of work and I'm counseling. Just this random Friday afternoon on my day off, I'm driving down the freeway. And I literally, because this is kind of how I talk to God, and Abba, I call him Abba now, my father. And he said, Michelle, you know how you've always struggled with Psalm 91:10? That no harm will come near your dwelling. Now, I'm a pretty sassy pants, and you can tell it ain't just the glasses. Is that I'm all like, okay. I used to say to him, if this is your idea of no harm, I sure would hate to see what harm looks like.
Right.
Like, this is a joke. If you say no harm will come near your dwelling. But on this day, he goes, you know how you've had a hard time with that? I'm like, do you think? And he said, where do I dwell? Right? No harm will come near your dwelling. And I said, well, you dwell in my spirit. He said, exactly. No harm ever came to your spirit. They got your body and they got your soul, mind, will, emotions, but they never got your spirit. And I'm like, whoa. And then I was like, that would have been really helpful about 15 years ago, like a little too late. But seriously, though, that has been so helpful in moving me through this, of saying there is a part of me that, if you will, is like a righteous remnant. There's a place in my spirit that does not know trauma. And I want that to feed the rest of me. And that's been a real take it to the bank verse for me.
Wow, that's so powerful what you said. And I just want to go back to in all my distress, because I was talking to someone else recently about Christianity and how we've made it so cute. It's so cute. And we, we live in the suburbs or wherever we are. We take our Bible, we go to church. Many of us go to these, it's in and out, in an hour, and it's feel good and all that. But Christianity has never been cute. It's never been cute.
You're right.
It's always been birthed out of gore and betrayal. What our Savior took upon his own personal flesh because of sin. And that's my point, is that God's original design was not for there to be sin in the world, but because of sin's entrance into the world, we have things like abandonment from fathers. We have abuse. We have misuse of authority in our churches, and the Me Too and the church too, and all of that. So I think, what you're saying, in all my distress, Christ took that on, and it was not cute. It was not pretty. It was not over quickly. So he suffered, he endured, and he is acquainted with every type of suffering that we could experience.
Well, let me add one more thing too, is that we think about the fact that fathers are also dealing with abandonment, abuse, rejection. And so they are passing on what they experienced.
Right.
And it's a runaway train. So it's like, how do we get healing to the core of who we are? We got to slow down, stop, go inside, face the lies that are embedded in the wounds, and get truth in there so it can set us free, of who we are and whose we are.
And I'm about to move forward, but I just want to say, I just love how God takes what the scriptures say, the foolish things of this world, to confound the wise. I'm not saying that you are foolish, but I'm saying that it would seem foolish for someone who has endured such hardship and pain and trauma to be able to come through all of that in order to rescue other people. It would seem like, oh, that's not going to happen because she had this bad experience, or because this person didn't know a father, they wouldn't be able to help women who are fatherless. But God uses our wounds and our brokenness. So I love that you have come through so much.
Yes.
Whoop, 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 whoop. I love that. I mean, it's just the sovereignty and the power of God.
You got that right.
So let's move forward. Okay, so we know why you are doing what you're doing. I want to talk about just in your experience, was it really common for a lot of people to see the root cause of their issues being tied back to their father wounds? Did you see that a lot, or?
Meaning in my clinical practice?
Yeah.
Or, I've been chewing on that idea because you and I had kind of set the groundwork with that one. And I don't find that, like you think, okay, in my clinical practice, last 21 years, how many people come in saying, I've got a problem with my dad, or I've got a problem with my mom? It's usually some interpersonal family of origin thing that's under something, some of the layers. And I would say more mom issues show up in my office. Yep, there are a lot of dad issues. I'm not going to lie. Like I have a client next week on Monday bringing her dad, and she's really scared, and that's why she's in her late 20s, and that's why we're doing it in my office, because it's too hard to do outside of here. But yet I've been chewing on this fact, Kia, that so many women who have mom issues, their moms have dad issues.
Wow.
And so I literally I'm in my office right here now. I had a woman in here on Monday that actually at the end of her session, it was like the perfect setup for our interview. She leaned up and this was the last thing she said at the end of the session. She said, how many people like are here dealing like me with mom stuff? She said, I didn't even know when I started with you 2 months ago that it was going to be this much mom stuff. And I said, okay, interesting. It is a lot of mom issues. But I said, then I asked, did your mom have significant dad wounds or dad voids? Meaning where your dad hurt you, or absences where he missed reaching your heart. And you know what she said? Oh, my mom has big dad issues. Wow. So I think there's, you trace it back, is so much of this does go back to the fathering.
Uh-huh. Oh my God. Whoa. That's a lot. You have to come back for part 2. That one. But I think, that's interesting that you said that. And I think with the mom issue, it's not culturally, it seems more acceptable to have a father wound than like a mom wound, because you mentioned moms, and people start to get that warm fuzzy feeling, and they're like, oh, my mom, or whatever. But it's not something that's outwardly spoken about, that I have issues with my mom. And I feel like a lot of women may not know who to even confide in, because it's something that's not so publicly accepted or even talked about. But I guess from hearing from you, it's more common than we know.
I would, even if I had to give it a ratio, is probably, I would say right now, probably 60 at least % of my clients are dealing with stuff with their mom.
Wow.
So it is, but then there's the key question, is how many of those moms have big deficits? Yeah, because of their dads.
That's your next book. Unless you already have a next book.
Well, I'm almost done with my second book, so it's still for dads of daughters. But yeah.
Okay, you can't spill the beans on that one.
Okay.
Okay, no, I'm asking you, can you spill the beans? You can't spill the beans.
Can I spill the beans? Yes. It's a book for fathers, where in the back of my first book, I have what I call scripts for dads, which I guess I haven't even told what I do with leading groups for men, but I'll share that in a minute.
I've been able to get there because what you said was so powerful, and then I went on a rabbit trail.
Oh, I love it. Let's do rabbit trails. But I lead groups for dads of daughters between their teens and their 20s. It's called the Abba Project, and we can talk more about that if you want. But that's where the book was birthed out of, that group. And many men I've discovered in my 8.5 years of almost 9 of traveling from my planet of Venus to Mars, I've made some observations. And one of them is that I've discovered that men would rather do nothing than do it wrong.
That's fascinating.
And I have yet to find a man that disagrees with me. I just let it sit there. I go, would you say that's a fair observation? They go, yep. They don't want to be found as incompetent, usually is the issue. So they either back off and don't even try, because they're like, I don't want to do it wrong. Or they get stuck in, just blowing it a lot or whatever. And that's where God has called me to help really equip fathers to better engage and dial into their daughter's heart space. And so this whole observation of men would rather do nothing than do it wrong is, they go, yeah. And I said, but doing nothing is doing it wrong. And they go, okay. And I said, but I know you want to do it right. And so I'm going to help you. So I'm going to write questions, scripts, that I want you to take your daughter on a date and read the question as I've written it. Because I live on Venus, the same planet as your daughter. And then if it bombs, you blame me and I'm your fall guy. And they go, I'm good with that. I like that. I go, make fun of me, roll me under the bus. If your daughter goes, that is really a stupid question. Just go, I know. Michelle came up with that. Really lame. Then go on to the next one. And so the second book is a whole book of scripts just for dads. So the back of my book now has 8 of them is all. I have, it's going to be a whole book of scripts on topics like sex and sexting and same-sex attraction and pornography and like.
Oh, you gotta come back. Please come back when that releases. Oh my goodness. That's
because
good.
What I find is a friend of mine said you're building men's competence, which builds their confidence. And so a lot of times I have found fathers are like, you know what? I'm smart enough to know I'm making it worse. You know, she hit that age, pre-adolescence. They're like, men are smart enough to go, okay, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to go, I am making this worse. So men say, I'm going to back off. Here, mom, you go in. And it's like, nope. If you look at the research, every part of a girl's life is better, a woman's life, when she's connected to her dad. And the research says a daughter feels the connection to her dad. Key word, not just is, there's a feeling of connection. So doesn't that bring up the question, like, how do you get connected? Well, it's a lot of listening. It's a lot of talking. It's a lot of, doing life together. It's not just going and, playing baseball, or that helps, but it's got to be interaction, right? So, but back to the research, it says daughters who feel connected to their dads. I mean, just here's a few of the things. They get better grades in school. They're more likely to finish high school and attend college. They're more likely to find steady employment. There's less depression.
Less likely to have a baby.
Less likely to delay sexual activity. And I'm like, dads, okay, right there. Who would have ever thought, here's another bumper sticker. Like, the best contraceptive we have is a connection to a father, relationship. And then you've got things like healthier body weight, less body dissatisfaction, less suicide attempts, more pro-social empathy. I mean, do we need that in our culture? Jail time is reduced by 80%, all by connection to dad. So you can tell why I'm so passionate about equipping fathers, because truly they're like, I don't know where to go.
Right.
Yeah. Help me decode. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm bilingual now. I speak Martian and Venusian. I'm going to put it into a language that you can understand. Because men say, can you just get to the point already? Okay, come on, doc, point already. Like, I don't want all the words. And I'm like, okay, I'm learning to be succinct, give them an action point and say, do that, say that. So that's my book is called, at least this is the working title, the Say It Right, Do It Right, Get It Right Manual for Dads. So it's man, highlighted man. So
I love that. And I do want to say that Dr. Watson is referencing Men Are From Mars and Women Are From Venus by
John Gray.
John Gray, yes. So just in case you're not familiar with that book, when she says Martian and
good, I'm glad you added that.
Yes. You know what? And I can't help but think that that manual would work for husbands and wives, because I'm thinking if a dad doesn't know how to connect with his daughter, he might not know how to connect with his wife either.
Bingo. I love it when dads come to my groups and they're like, this has come in really handy with my wife. I'm like, I know, because you're learning how to listen different, how to ask questions different. And I just honestly, I can think of like a few months ago, I spoke at this men's conference and like over 100 men packed into my workshop and they're crying. I literally stopped in the middle of it. I wasn't crying, but I went, there is something, a move of God happening in this room. And I started asking men, why are you crying? Why are you crying? Tell me what your tears are saying. And I find that men are so tender when they open up this whole topic, because they want to reach their daughters' hearts. They want to reach their wives and the women in their lives' hearts. But so often they're like, no one taught me, and I'm still at a deficit. But I honestly, and I think something about being 58 years old has been helpful. It's like I'm getting up into that grandma stage. I'm like, come on, man, come on. And I'm not trying to cop a feel. And I don't have a seductive spirit that's going to dance with the spirit of lust. And we're gonna move forward together. And I'm going to call you out on your stuff, because we got to get going. Come on. It's time to take action today. Because you love action figures. Who were your favorites when you were little? Superman, Batman, Iron Man, whatever. You wouldn't have liked that action figure if he didn't take what? Action. So I'm like, okay, I am going to give you specific assignments to take action. And I find these guys do it, Kia, and these daughters. Oh my goodness. In fact, you know what? I should show you this one. A friend of mine just last night wrote me that her dad just decided to write her one card a week while she's at college.
Oh my God.
And she's had some stuff. I mean, who doesn't have stuff with their dad? It's all kind of rocky in high school. So here she literally, like an hour ago, I said, send me a picture. Here she is with the letter her dad just, look at that smile.
Yeah.
She said, I feel so loved by my dad. And she said, tell other dads to do this. It makes me feel so special. And I would love if other daughters felt the same. I said, can I share your story, Brittany? And I'm saying, dads, your daughters light up like that with like a letter. How long would that take to write a little card? Dad put some jokes in there. He taped some funny, little cartoons. It didn't have to be big, but he thought of her and he took the time. I mean, all in all, it's probably 15, 20 minutes to make the week of your daughter. Dads, it's some of these practical things. Like, Kia, do you think, I know that you predominantly speak to women on this forum. Do you want me to share any practical ideas with dads today, or should we save that for another time?
I think we should save that for another time, because as you're talking, I just can feel that there is a woman out there that's saying, my dad, that good for her. My father's never, ever going to write me a card. He's never going to take the time to do that. He don't even know I exist. He doesn't know I have feelings. Yeah. And so that's who's coming to me. They're coming to me with the brokenness of what they've experienced from their father. And there's really no hope in sight that their dad's going to get a clue that they still need them, or that they need them, or their father's incarcerated, or just really tough situations. And I think that's where I was going to go. And I know I was originally, when I contacted you, I know now, but with the Abba Project, I thought maybe you were teaching people how to connect with God as Father, which
I do too. Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, that's where we need to go, because that's what the challenge becomes when you. It's great when a dad is coming to you and saying, Michelle, teach me how to be a good father.
Right. Which is rare, but they're coming. This is I'm leading my 10th group.
For one of those men, I applaud you. But what do we do for women who are like, my dad's not thinking about me?
Right. Okay. I got some things from my heart to yours, women. So with my dad, we are close. I'm the oldest of 4 girls, as we said at the beginning. And my dad and I, because I've never been married, did I add that piece? I'm 58, never been married, no children. I have an honorary daughter who's 28. But
these men are sleeping out here, Dr. Watson. They need to come and snatch you up.
No, I'm not doing marriage now. I'm all in on this fathering thing till my dying breath. But I'm telling you.
Okay.
But this only happened 3 years ago. But my whole life I was like, why is no one picking me? But anyways, okay, that's another topic for another day on singleness.
But somebody's going to come, because you just made that announcement on Facebook.
No, I'm not doing that.
They're probably coming now.
No. So you can screen them, because I'm not doing it. But anyway, back to this piece about what do you do when you have a dad that didn't get it. So my dad, like most dads, wants to get it. But my dad grew up on the south side of Chicago with 3 different last names among the 7 kids. He was in gangs at the time of 12. His father died in a boxcar of gangrene and homeless. I'm saying my dad had no template on how to be a father. So though he did so much better than his dad, my dad would always say, Michelle, I'll do anything for you. He'll mow my lawn. He'll come over and help. But in terms of going deep into the stuff, because I got a lot of crap down in there that God has met me, I tend to go deep, if you will, right? Like, okay, this is the shallow end of the pool. We got to go, deep end. And I get bored, to be honest with you, with kind of shallow conversation. Right. And so my dad will go like, Dad, do you think we're very close? He goes, not as close as you want us to be. Because I want always like, can we go deeper? I want to hear about your trauma, Dad. How did you survive it? And he's like, can we just talk about like something else that's fun at Costco? And so again, my dad and I are close in many ways. you know, because my dad pursues my heart a lot of the times. And yet still I'm a daughter that longs for more, you know. But that's not really where the bulk of my woundedness comes from. It's mostly the idea of father is still in the file folder in my brain under grandfather. So my mom's dad was one of my primary abusers. And so unbeknownst to me, I just told you about my trauma history where the Jesus that I knew here in Bible school came here when he met me and tears coming down his cheeks for me. Well, about a year into the Abba Project, the group that I lead every year, 9 months for dads of daughters. So this would have been like 2012. I was asked to come speak at a ranch for at-risk youth on the father issues and fatherhood of God, much like you're asking. And I'm like, yeah, I'm getting ready. I love it. I feel passionate. And I'm like, okay, I learned about Jesus a lot in my counseling. Jesus met me. Then I got to the part where I'm like, I go to a Foursquare church. Who knew there's a Holy Spirit? Never learned about the Holy Spirit in Bible college. It was more, I'm like, whoa, this is like transforming my life. Kia, it was only about 7 years ago, coming on it. So what's that, 2012, 6, 7 years ago, I'm asked to come speak. And I go, oh my goodness, I almost had a panic attack. I go, I have never connected with God as Father. How did that never even cross my mind that I had missed one of the three? There's only three in the Trinity. It's like, how did I not even think about God as a father? And I'm like, I can't go speak on something I don't know. So it's like half panic attack, clear as a bell. I heard God say, now I want to put a little, can I do a little welcome to Venus, a little like detour for those that are listening that say, okay, Michelle, you keep saying you heard God or God said, or you saw. I didn't used to know how to hear God's voice. And I think that's a place that I want to speak to right now, because those of you that say, I didn't learn to talk to my dad, I don't know how to talk to this one. Like it just the whole, how do I know it's God? I have a 3-point kind of rule of thumb that I use that I have been able to tell that it's God's voice. One, it comes fast. So it's usually like, okay, God, what do you, and then it pops in, I call them downloads. Whereas if it's my own thought, I'm going to be like, I wonder what I should do about that. Well, I could, you know what I kind of contemplate versus when it's God's voice, bonk, it's right there, download. Number 2, it's not usually what I was just thinking. It's like, oh, that's an interesting thought. Like, that's how I know it's God. I wasn't just thinking of it. So it's not what I was thinking of. It comes fast. Mm-hmm. And number 3, it always lines up with the word of God. So I've told some high school kids before, they might be like, hey, I want to go out with my boyfriend tonight. Hey, I wasn't just thinking that. I think I want to have sex with him. Oh, okay, that wasn't what I was just thinking. It popped in fast. It must be from God. Oh, shoot. It doesn't line up with the word of God. Okay, it's the trifecta. It's got to be all 3. So back to this thing. So it's like, I can't go speak on the fathering issue because I've never connected with God as a father. And I literally heard God just as a father say, Michelle, do you remember back in the early 90s, this was when it was 1991, and I brought it here to show you. But he said, do you remember the picture that you drew in your journal? Can you see that? Mm. And he said, I knew which one he meant right away. And it's out of Psalm 18. He drew me out of deep waters that were too powerful for me. He reached down from on high. That's me. And this is all the crap that I was dealing with. And he said, can you see what's on the top of this? He said, whose hand did you draw? Mine or Jesus? And I was like, no, that was the big hand. That was yours. He goes, yep. And then he said, and do you remember? And this would have been when I was like 3 years later, I was 24. He said, you laid in your bed one night and I admitted I was so angry at God. And I remember laying on this white knobby bedspread. I was living at my parents' house at the time, super unhappy. My stuff was starting to come up. I hadn't started counseling yet, but I was all these crappy feelings and memories. And I was finally so angry at God. Now, my dad had trained me to believe that if you're mad at God, he will strike you dead. Because that's how he was raised. You don't get angry at God. Right. And so I couldn't hold it back yet anymore. And I was like, I'm so mad at you. Go ahead and strike me dead. And it sounds melodramatic, but it wasn't. I was dead serious. I'm like, go ahead. I can't hold it back anymore. I'm mad at you. I'm so mad at you that you let this happen to me. I almost bordering on I hate you, but I don't think that came out. And so at this point, 7 years ago, I heard the Father after this one. He said, remember when you laid in that bed? Who did you think would strike you dead, me or Jesus? And I'm like, Oh no, I knew that was the big guy.
Mm-hmm.
I knew that was you. He said, see, I have been there. You just didn't know it was me because you weren't ready to know that it was me.
Mm-hmm.
You weren't ready to know that because of your grandfather wounds, it would have been too much to have me show up there. And I've written this poem that's 6 minutes long. I didn't bring it today, but I could pull it up if you wanted it. But I called it Looking Back. And I wrote it a few years ago at a conference where I said, here's what the me I know now would tell the me back then. And one of the things was is that it was like, I knew that Jesus stepped in and showed me his face, but I only learned much later. They were both there with me giving grace.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, at first, I didn't trust the Father. I thought Jesus was all I did need. But in time, I came to understand that his dad could stop the bleed.
Mm-hmm.
I wish now that I'd run faster to my Father, the one whose hands have my name tattooed on them. They give safety and a place to land. So it's like, I literally 7 years ago had the Father show up for me, Kia, and it added a piece to my life that I like a foundation that I honestly never felt ever before. I mean, I got complex PTSD for crying out loud. I got dissociation up the wazoo. Like, like my brain is, short circuiting and frying out. And I'm like, there's a stability. You could ask people that it's all because God as an Abba, dad, father, showed up with the other two. Go figure. John 14-17. Jesus, I'm in you. The Father's in me. I'm in the Father. Father's in me. Like, they don't do anything apart from each other. So they're never less. The three of them never do anything, right? Apart from each other. Here's us. They wrap around. So we are never less than four, ever.
Mm-hmm.
And this piece that for those of you that say, my dad could never, ever do anything that you're talking about, Michelle, it's like, okay. So if Jesus, Hebrews 1:3 said, is the exact representation of the Father, it means when Jesus shows up, I get the fullness of the Father, even if I can't handle God as a father. But so that means women, men, when we're reading Psalms and he's saying, I've searched you and I've known you and I've pursued you with an everlasting love. That's New Testament. That's the letter. And you're like, my dad would never send me a letter. I'm like, yeah, yours did.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, Romans 8:15 says,
that's where I was going. Yeah. The
right?
spirit you have received has not made you a slave so that you live in fear. Rather, the spirit you have received has made you sons. I'm jacking it up.
And that the spirit calls out Abba,
Father.
Right?
Yeah.
Daddy in Aramaic. And one of my seminary professors, David Ekman, said that here's how he translates that scripture. You want to hear it?
Mm-hmm.
That the spirit is shouting. The spirit and Jesus are shouting, you've got a dad. Take your pain to your dad. Is that the best rewrite of that passage? Mm-hmm. So those that go, I don't got a dad. He's incarcerated. I was abandoned. I'm like, yeah, you do. You got a dad.
Mm-hmm.
You got a daddy, and he's crazy about you. He's tattooed your name on his hand. Come on.
And I think because I've written about this, I have a blog post. It's called how your dad. I can't remember the title, but how your dad influences the way that you view God. And it goes back to what we were talking about at the beginning, how we have all these lies. Like we assume that our fathers are going to be, we assume that God is like our earthly dad. So if our earthly dad was absent, we assume God is absent. Or if our earthly dad was dominant and a dictator, then that's how we assume that God is. And we have to debunk those lies and replace it with truth. And for me, it's been more of a gradual process.
Right, me too.
And definitely a faith walk as well, to just say, okay, God, I'm going to trust you. This feels very weird. It feels very abstract. It feels like not tangible to call you a father. It feels foreign to me. Yeah. But I'm going to stay in this place. I'm going to continue to pray to you. I'm going to continue to talk to you. I desire this type of relationship, but I don't have it just yet. And
well, I think, oh, go ahead.
Oh, no, I'm just saying for me, as I have stayed in that place, I've come to develop a stronger relationship and father bond with my heavenly Father versus one of like your God, but you're not more intimately connected to me. It's taking time to get there is what I'm saying.
Right. Well, and what I was going to add to what you said is that start with the member of the Trinity you do the best with.
Oh, that's good.
And let them introduce you to the one. And it's rare.
Some people are having trouble even with the Trinity, even with.
No, true that. So if
accepting that the three gods in one, like what? You know,
I know they're like, I have this little thing I made out, and it's on my website, drmichellewatson.com, that says like, if you had a father like this, flaky, angry, timid, hypocrite, empty, rigid. You know, you might see God like this, you know, fake, abusive, trustless, hinderer, elusive, rule giver, you know, but down here's the other one, right? Some people say, I don't have a problem with God as a father, but sometimes those, like we're saying, those go together. And I think I only wrote this to just validate.
Is that free? Are you giving that free?
Yeah, I got lots of free resources on my website. Yep.
Okay, so I will definitely link that. I'm like, I want that. I want to know. I can't hardly read that real good, but that sounds good.
Yep.
Oh, that's good. I love that you are a visual person. There's got to be another way to do this, though. I might get Zoom, but that'll be another interview for another day. But I think that is so good. I think just starting from there and allowing the relationship with God to heal us, to go into those places like you're saying. And in some ways we have put up these barriers to protect ourselves and to safeguard ourselves because we weren't protected and we weren't safeguarded. So we have erected walls that even keep God out.
Well said. Yeah, because I don't know if you've ever heard this 3-word quote, but it's perception is projection. And so I think if we have a perception, like you say, from our earthly relationships, we project that onto God as a father. And I'm saying, what if that isn't the truth of him?
Right. And what am I shutting myself off from? And then really, what if these words that I'm reading in the Bible are true? What is Psalms 46? Which one it says God is a father to the fatherless, or when your mother and your father forsake you, God will take you up, or 1 John 1:3:1. Am I messing this up?
How love of the Father. How great is the Father? Yeah.
What if all of that is lavish? Yep. What if that is true?
What if it's true?
What if it's true and I have access to it, but because of my pride or my stubbornness or my hurt or my frustration or my anger, I'm not accessing it? Mm-hmm. What if I'm missing out? And I hope that if you're saying that, if you're contemplating that you would be willing to surrender. Really, it takes a place of surrendering to God and saying, okay, I'll try you. I will try this. God, if it can make a difference in my life, in my pain, in my hurt, in my frustration with this dad that you gave me, then I'll try it. Yeah.
And I think
I've tried everything else.
I've tried everything else. And I think what we know about the Father, it's in Luke 15, is the most beautiful, expression. It's all red letters. So Jesus was saying with the prodigal son story, I want you to know about my dad. Mm-hmm. So he's standing there looking for you. It's not with it's about time. Could you figure? And there's 5 things that dad does. Luke 15:20, it says he saw his son, he had compassion, he ran toward him, threw his arms around him and kissed him. And I'm like, any dads listening, if you're like, I don't really know how to do this father thing because I didn't get the model, there's your 5-point model about how to be a great dad. See your kid? See? So meaning you really take the time to slow down and look into their eyes, right? We, especially as daughters, we show a lot by our eyes, but he saw his child. He was filled with compassion. And I think how many daughters, sons too, say, my dad always gets so angry. He doesn't look through my lens at my age. But that's the kind of dad we have. He's filled with compassion, right? Number 3, he runs toward us. So I think I love how you said, Kia, just being open, because God is a wooer and a pursuer, right? That's what a role of a father is to pursue. Not always earthly dads get it, but this father pursues, woos. So he ran toward, and then he threw his arms around, embraced, and then kissed. Now, some people might go, okay, that's really creepy. That's like, you don't do a father kiss thing. But I get the picture in my mind, especially knowing Jewish culture.
Yeah.
It's not the on your lips inappropriate thing. I almost think of a dog, like on top of you, licking, kissing, like it's an embrace.
Not that visual. Not the dog. Not the dog. I'm not a dog person. I'm not a dog person.
Okay, but it's a healthy, is all I'm saying, is those that have abuse might go, okay, I was with you till that one. Is God as a father, right? It's a healthy kind of safe touch kind of thing. So I think anyone that's struggling, you just can say, okay, God of the universe, if you're my creator and my DNA, it's written in you, and you have my name on your hand, I'm going to be open to just looking for where you show up for me. Like, show up for me, God. You're bigger than my fears, bigger than my past, bigger than my history. And you span all of time. So you already see me where I'm going to be, not where I was, not where I am. I just want you to pursue. I'm open to being pursued by you. Then I want to see where you show up. And he does.
That's so good. That is so good. Wow. Michelle, you are a power-packed interview. I can't believe we have talked. I don't even think I looked at my questions at all.
We didn't need them. I actually, just to show you, I came prepared. Like, I wrote out answers to all this stuff. Like, I like being prepared for interviews. Like, but again, I think that just gets in my heart, even if we go off script. I love that. It doesn't need to, this was good prep for me.
Look, I'm always shooting from the hip. Pew, pew, pew. But I do want to ask you a little bit more, like, for the Abba Project, do you have plans to expand or to do more with that? Maybe have chapters or teach other people how to do what you are doing?
Yeah, so let me just even define it first. It's a 9-month group for dads with daughters 13 to 30, and we meet once a month for 9 months. And I started it because God told me out of the blue December of 2009, that I was out of Luke 1 verse 17, that like Zechariah was told his yet to be born son John would help turn the hearts, not the heads of fathers. Isn't that interesting? The command, the last verse of the Old Testament, God said it's the hearts of fathers that have to turn, not their heads. And I think it's because it's not as intuitive. Right. And I'm like, dads, we love it when your head turns, but the command is heart. How do you turn a heart? And so that's what the Abba Project is about. It's 9 months, once a month. And so last year I did a group in Virginia, and I did it remotely from here. And a guy did his doctoral dissertation on the Abba Project at Liberty University. So he co-led it there. This year I have a group that's in Bellevue, Washington, and a gal that I've mentored on and off since high school. She's a psychologist, clinical psychologist, is leading that. And then I have wanted to do video and curriculum. Maybe someone listening wants to partner with me in this. And so, yes, I have for years, actually, because I do speak around the country in different venues for dads of daughters. I've got to be in Washington, D.C. in January at the Department of Health and Human Services to talk about fathering. And so just different things have opened up. But I go, well, so far it hasn't been curriculum and video, but I do see the need for that. And I've also, you talk about what's next on this one. You want to hear the crazy idea that God gave me about 5-6 years ago was to do a reality television show.
Oh, wow. Where you
and I did
talking to dads and daughters? Oh, wow.
I did a bunch of filming for a sizzle reel. And it's a really long story, but I ended up scrapping it.
What's a sizzle reel?
It is a 4-minute video introduction to your idea.
What this is going to be about. Okay.
Yeah. And so, but the process was phenomenal of meeting with, like, I'd be with the teenage daughter in her bedroom, and she's crying on her bed for where her dad doesn't get her. And then I'm with him in his garage, in his office with all his tools, and he's telling me his stuff. And then I'm bringing them together and helping them to decode. I'm helping decode. It was so cool. And it's never left me, this vision. Well, literally in the past week, a friend of mine said, Michelle, I want to see your proposal. And he called me last night and said, I have got someone for you to talk with from Hollywood. So next week I'm talking with them. So again, I don't know if this will go, but I'm like, I want to reach the hearts and the homes of men. And I'm like, they're going to do it with the remote in their hand. Hey, what's on? So you could pray with me for the Dad Whisperer to be beyond radio, to be in a forum where men can learn what to do because they don't know where to go. And a lot of them are too busy to pay for counseling, or that's just too related. But that's still my vision. So
yeah, that's amazing. I actually know somebody that was like, God told her to do a webisode, and she just like finished it. She just finished it, but she didn't know where the resources were coming from or anything, and everything just kind of fell into place.
Yeah, it's a God thing. So I'm just like, I've laid, I think what's happened for me, even with my singleness, for those listening that maybe are in that space of going, where's my guy, or where's marriage, or what's wrong with me? Why doesn't anybody pick me? Is I had a friend a couple years ago, I was at a wedding, and, made this about 4 years ago. And I remember I hadn't seen him in a lot of years. He was sitting next to me and, oh, you must have the gift of singleness then. And I'm like, what? I don't think so. And I just looked at him like, I don't know, I don't call it a gift. Most women would go, this ain't no gift, And so I just looked at him and I said, you know what the deal is? Why I'm not all wigged out anymore is I trust the Father finally. Like, I actually trust him. It's taken all the stress away. I don't know how that happened, but it's just that whole Father thing. I told you, it's added a whole layer to my life that I'm just like, I want to I'm a big hugger. I want to hug every woman and man, and just go, you are so loved. You are so precious and adored by a Father in heaven that has your name on his hand. Like, on those times where you feel forgotten actually, and not important.
Security is the word that comes to mind. I was just praying with a lady at church. The ministry I do, you stand at the care table and somebody may come to pray with you.
Right.
So this lady came, and she was just heartbroken because a guy had left her life, and she couldn't understand why he left, and really wanted him to come back. And so it was hard to come. And I was thinking to myself, I wonder, does she have father issues? I wonder, is she clinging to this? I'm always like, I wonder, do they have father issues? People don't even have father issues. I'm like, do you have father issues? I'm sorry.
That's the lens you look through and listen through.
But I was saying, the reason you're holding on to this person that is really bad news, like you were mentioning, the person that was in your life that set off the whole catalyst for everything. But that she was holding on to this person in her life, or holding on to the idea of being coupled up because there was a void or a vacancy that she had in her soul that had not been filled by God, and she was trying to fill it with men. So I mean, that's just a little spider web that I was thinking about. But you talk, you're secure. You're secure in God alone, and in the purpose that He's given you to fulfill, and you're going after it. So, I mean, I think that's awesome, and it's amazing to know that type of security.
Yeah, it took me, like you said too, Kia, it took you a long time to get here. Right. And I just so appreciate, like my friend Paul Young says it this way, God must really like process, because everyone I know is in there. I'm like, come on. We're all like, how come I'm not there yet? Or we look at each other and compare. Well, you're here. I'm like, God's got the process. You're right. Just be in it.
Right. And we look at people, we look at them at their now and forget that they had a process to get to their now.
Thank you for saying that. I tell sometimes my clients will be like, well, you're so old. And I'm like, okay, seriously, I could line up people that knew me 30 years ago. They will tell you a different story,
Well, I'm so glad that our paths have crossed when they did.
Me too.
Definitely want to have you back to talk about your next book. It sounds amazing. You guys, I'm going to put all her information. If you're watching on YouTube, it'll be in the description section of the YouTube video. And if you're watching on Facebook, it'll be just above the video. But you guys check out Dr. Watson and some of the resources. I know I'm going to head over there and get that father that fathers.
I have a bunch of resources, lots of free resources there for dads and daughters.
Yes, and I'm going to just tell other people about you because this interview was so impactful for me. So thank you so much. Is there anything else? Oh, how can people connect with you on social media and all of that?
Yep. So yeah, on Twitter, I think it's M Watson. I can't remember, M Watson PhD or something, M Watson PhD or something like that. And then on Facebook, I've got an author page, Dr. Michelle Watson. My website is drmichellewatson.com. I'm on iTunes at the Dad Whisperer. So dads, and they're all still available on my website. So I really want to equip dads with easy ways to get pumped up, to get equipped basically on how to reach their daughters' hearts. And so I just put all that stuff out there. You know, everything's free except my book. I mean, I'm just like, I'm invested in investing in dads.
And the impact that you're making, I'm sure it will be felt for many years to come as generations will be impacted. Thank you so much.
Oh, it's been a pleasure.
It has been. It has. Thank you so much, Dr. Watson. And you guys, please join me next month where my guest will be Toni Collier. She's going to be talking about broken crayon still color. So y'all come back. Now you hear?
I love
it. No, don't repeat that. But know that I'm praying for you and praying that you will exchange your father wounds for the love of God the Father. Take care.